work something out, you know?
Okay, the snarky side that we kinda like.
All right, so this is the East Hampton Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership. Today is November 21st. It is 6:48 p.m. Okay, so does everyone have an agenda?
I don't have it in front of me. That's my email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything they want to add to the agenda that they can see right away from the agenda? Yes, Kathy?
Just the thing about the affordable housing that's available.
Oh, yes, okay. At Mountain View condos?
Yes.
I have the official letter. You could have lost it.
About that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that there's a unit that goes up for sale, I get a notification. Okay.
All right, so let's talk about our the CPA requests that we made, that we were approved for, and an update from Jessica on any conversations with PVPC and.
So contract's been drafted, it's been reviewed by PVPC, housing rehab, and it's in the city attorney's hands right now.
Great.
So he's reviewing it, so once he signs off on it, then we'll start collecting signatures.
Awesome. So that could start
Once they've got capacity to start, yeah.
once they're ready.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, which should be soon, it's only a couple of units, so it shouldn't be that big. I think the tricky thing is Susan, my colleague who oversees the CDBG program, she's been trying to clarify with them the individuals who are outside the CDBG target area. So there's a good, I want to say like 10, 12 people on that wait list, so we're just trying to figure out who's still around and then come up with a strategy for contacting them. We have addresses. Typically what PVPC does is they'll send out letters, and then whoever basically responds first gets in the pipeline.
Where are these units located?
They can be located anywhere.
Oh,
Anywhere
I see.
outside the community development block grant target area, which is essentially the down, I don't have a map here, I can go grab one if you want, but it's essentially the downtown is the target area, so it's for units outside that target area that this money's being used for. So,
Excuse me, you were handing this out, and then you started talking about PVPC, and I got confused.
sorry.
So what's the amount of PVPC? Roughly.
That's their agenda, that's the deal. You can share this one? That's right. I've got them commencing on or about December 1st and expiring by June 30th, 2018. The CPA, the stuff that comes from the CPA committee in terms of what we're committed to, they call it the worksheet. It's like their decision, basically. And so on the worksheet, the CPA and City Council have stated that we have to be completed with this entire project by November 15th, 2018, which is totally doable, but there is a time limit.
Does it say we can go back and ask for an extension?
We can, but we have to explain why the funds haven't been expended out and blah, 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 so, I guess I'm realizing that you never received this, that
No,
I know when you got it, did you?
No, I think I have
It
it.
did get mailed out, I thought.
Yeah, we got it at one of the 5 meetings toward the end.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So I'll scan this and I'll send it out to everybody. It just sets the terms, and some of these terms, specifically with the first-time home buyer program, there are 2 conditions that they basically put on the program. One is that the program has to be targeted regionally, and the second is that priority should be given to vendors that can leverage additional funds. So you'll see when we start talking about the RFP for the first-time home buyer that those 2 elements have been incorporated into the RFP. That was a big thing for them.
Yeah.
So we need to at least make sure that's in that RFP. But anyway, So, yeah, I'm just waiting back to hear back from the city attorney, and then we can move forward.
Great. Okay. Do you wanna walk us through the draft?
Sure, so, sorry, do you, I don't know if there's enough copies for everybody. I have to share with you actually, I think what I have here, draft. Here, you draft, you share with Jackie. Oh,
Mhm.
alright. So this was basically pulled from, an RFP that the city put out under the CDBG program in like 2007, so this is, I use that RFP as the model and the jumping off point. So the first is really just sort of the background and general information regarding it. And a quick explanation of the program, proposal submission. Once we sort of walk through this, I'll speak with the chief procurement officer and have her review this, and we'll start setting some of these details and date, but, we'll have to pick a date and time, but that's not a big deal. So, what I did because of the CPA worksheet on those last two items, so I set the programmatic priorities. One, that the resources have to be leveraged. Priority shall be given to vendors that can leverage additional funds. I've highlighted this because this second piece, in order to increase the amount of money for direct payment loans, because that's what was in the CPA worksheet.
Okay.
But I don't think that's exactly what we were asking for either. So, so the question is, we leave it in there and we sort of see what the responses are, but the fact is, I doubt anybody's gonna put money on the table to do more DPLs and more projects.
Right.
So, it's a little bit of a gray area, but I have it in there because it's the exact same language that's in the worksheet coming from CPA. And it seems a little weird because then it says which may include funding from other sources, volunteer efforts, staff, and in-kind contributions, which is not in there, but that was language from the old RFP. So it's a little wonky, but, and then second, regional advertising. So then the application format is there's a proposal application form on page 3. We'd be asking people to develop a project description summary. Summary should include a detailed scope of the total project. And I've highlighted this because I'm not sure if we want this, but maybe we do. What needs or problems will this project address, and how will the services to be provided solve or mitigate this problem? So what makes this weird is that we've already self-identified this as a problem, and we got money for it. And so to ask for somebody to respond to that seems a little weird, but at the same time, my thought was, maybe to have that data would help validate what we think is a need too, and it wouldn't hurt to have that information being provided to us from the respondent, whether they say we've seen 50 people or 75 people. I mean, I think it might be kind of helpful to have that information for us. So that's a question to the committee on sort of what to do about that request. Who will provide the services and where will the project be located, and who's the target population, and what expertise do you have in serving this population? So any comments about that section there? Or should I just keep plowing on and then we can talk about the whole thing?
Yeah, keep going.
All right, project feasibility. So project demand, describe what evidence exists to show that individuals use these services. Again, it seems a little weird, but might be helpful information for us to have. Include documentation of demand for this project through summary descriptions and surveys, inquiries, waiting lists, or past participation. Reasonableness of the project funding, cost per participant, total project cost, experience of the provider in delivering these services, explain all sources and uses of funds needed for this project. Completeness and reasonableness of the timeline. Project milestones, time required to accomplish each milestone, how they'll all be completed, provide the timeline. Administration and staffing plan, it's a pretty typical request of any RFP, but just an organizational structure and some explanation of that.
Do we have a timeline for this one like we did on the other one?
It's all tied to the same. There is a timeline, I put it on the front.
Okay,
The project must be completed by November 15th, 2018. And then financial budget and cash flow, so on page 4, there's a budget worksheet, which we should probably look at. And then having a note saying the funds will be issued to the agency on a cost reimbursement basis, so we're not gonna upfront funds, they have to provide the service and then we will reimburse it, that's standard municipal finance. And then matching funds for proposed projects are not required, however, they'll strengthen an application. Budget form, selection criteria. So if we go to the application form, this is pretty self-explanatory, I feel like there isn't anything too strange in my opinion, but, and then the budget form, so this was pulled from the CDBG, and keep in mind that the CDBG RFP had a lot more to it than this. Because there's a lot more federal regulations that RFP has to deal with. So, the budget forms, so this is my concern, so we're asking them to sort of break things out, but we know that when Valley first came forward with this idea and went to the CPA, they had a bit of a conniption fit about why are we paying Joanne's salary, she already gets paid, you know. So the question is, do we even wanna ask for all of this, because is it gonna be more problematic in the end? And then secondly, program delivery, are you whispering over there?
Nothing, I'm not whispering anything.
And I can't read her lips, so I'm like, what?
And then program delivery,
Oh, well, that's a public meeting. She was asking about recording.
we are recording, right?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. And then program delivery, again, occupancy, rent and utilities, is that something we wanna be asking, or do we want just sort of a more, I don't know. So I have questions about this. And then the selection criteria rating form, so this would be by the partnership when reviewing all the hundreds of RFPs that we're gonna be getting. And again, this is pulled from the CDBG one, and, you know, the points from what seem to make sense. So if they don't meet the two programmatic priorities of the regional advertising and resources leverage, 90 points, but with those two things, they would get 10 points, an additional 10 points. So 100 points total.
And regional just means, like, we didn't define regional.
We didn't define regional.
It
was-
means outside of East Hampton.
Yeah, so I think there was a little bit of back and forth by some of the members of the CPA committee, that was really one request by one CPA member. And I know there was another member that was like, why do we wanna do that? Why would we advertise outside of East Hampton? Why do we meet the needs of people in inside of East Hampton? And I said, well, once they come to East Hampton, then they're East Hampton residents, it was accurate. But that ended up, they voted that,
That's
even without that
specific
dissent of dissenting opinion, that is still in here, and so we're kind of being held to that by the CPA committee to at least put that in there, whether we agree with it or not.
I don't disagree, I just couldn't remember if we defined what regionally actually meant.
No.
So I think, you know, looking at it in a broad, like, you know, regionally meaning the Pioneer Valley or whatever, it seems like
Yep.
what we would want anyway, as the, if we're wearing our fair housing hat.
Exactly. So that's
So do you
it.
wanna be more specific?
Can we be more specific, or do
Sure.
we have to use that exact
I
language?
know, if you want to be more specific. Should be targeted regionally to, within the Pioneer Valley region, Hampton and Hampshire counties, Hampton, Hampshire, and Franklin counties.
Yeah.
The 91 corridor?
Connecticut River Valley?
Knowledge corridor, I mean, there's many different ways. We can slice this and dice this any way we like.
Yeah, we could be a little more specific, though, I think. What does it mean, the 10 points for addresses a programmatic priority?
So when you go to the first page, see programmatic priorities, middle-ish.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, resources leverage.
So I think the idea with the resources, so the leverage was the budget is the amount of money we're giving out is 75.
Correct.
The budget that we submitted had, I can't remember, it's on the back of the worksheet, I think. I think their idea was that if you could have some leverage, some funding that would pay for like more, the staffing, then you could take that 18,000 and put it into the DPLs and provide more DPLs. Was that
remember that, do you?
Was that what the idea was about the leveraging the money?
Yes.
Was to not using CPA money for the staff time and
Right.
then the other.
Like, if,
But-
yeah, I think.
But what wasn't clear to me about that was was that gonna apply to this particular money? Or was it, in the process of doing this, the agency gets more money, so going forward, they won't need so much from us? That's what,
I think the CPA, they like a match. They're big on matches. They love to use CPA to leverage other funding. So I'm thinking that their thought was probably
Well,
have them put more money towards it for offsetting other things.
and so an organization like Valley CDC that often goes to banks to ask for money to support their first-time homebuyer programs could say, we have such and such money from Florence Savings Bank and East Hampton Savings Bank to help us with the program costs so that more money can go into these loans. Right? Because they do that, they ask for support from all the banks. Anyway, the question I have is about the criteria rating. And one of the things that I've usually seen on these that I don't see on here is, and I'm not gonna say this correctly, but like the agency's experience, number of years of experience, we usually have a rating for that. Should that be on there too? Like, or do you feel like it's in there somewhere else?
So I think that the questions on the budget form though, especially if we're looking to come up with something like this, we're not asking the right questions.
Well, do we want something like this? I guess the question is, what does the committee want to look at in terms of a budget? I mean, we have to hold them accountable, and it's how they're gonna be filing their reimbursement. So, you know, they're a subcontractor, they're gonna have task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, those tasks are gonna have a dollar value, and once those tasks are completed, then we will pay them. So, so I guess that's my question, how detailed do we wanna know about their budget and the intricacies of their budget and how they're funding this program?
I think it's too much information.
Yeah.
We wanna know that they're gonna be spending this money for this program. And we're asking for other documentation of the financial soundness of the organization. I just feel like,
Years of experience and financial soundness are two different things.
Yeah, I think it might be interesting to, I mean, it would be fine to have a list of all the overhead, I mean, that's a pain in the ass for them to calculate, but okay. But I mean, if they're gonna do, for example, if they're gonna get matching to do staffing, then they could say they're gonna do this many more DPLs. And so we could have a listing of how much they're gonna spend on DPL, which we don't have now. We have program delivery, advertising, consultants, professional services, and equipment, and none of those is really the actual loans. But we do want an advertising budget, we do want how much they're gonna spend on loans, and we wanna understand how much it's gonna cost them to do staff, but like if I were gonna say, you know, I'm gonna have a full-time staff person who makes $40,000 a year, I'd put that in here, and then I would say that I'm charging you $0. But I wanna know like the staff positions is fine. But the question is, do we wanna also cover admin staff? Or do we wanna leave it up to them to say that they're gonna use it for admin staff and then we make a judgment about that?
Instead of these two positions, the counseling and the education. We could just leave it open as staff,
Right.
right, and they could tell us what they're
Right.
using it for.
But I do think we need to have an understanding of how much they plan to use for the loans.
I mean, I would probably, so they're gonna submit their bills to you, yeah. So you're gonna wanna know how much they spent on rent, right? So if they submit for rent, you're gonna wanna be able to go back and look,
Well, they're not, what they would do is they would submit an invoice that would
detail, yeah.
line item everything out and what percentage.
So I would think you'd want them to put a line item here.
Do we even wanna make that on the table that we're gonna pay for rent?
Oh. Well, CPA approved that we would pay for rent, right?
I think that's why, when Susan was working on this, that's why she put some of those in there, because it was already in the CPA.
Yeah. I mean, I would say whatever CPA said was an allowable expense, we could have on the budget form, and then they could determine, maybe they're gonna say, no, I'm not gonna use it for rent, cause I wanna use more of it for staffing or DPLs, cause we have a grant that pays for rent. What's the most useful way for us to do this for you, Jessica? Well, like, would you rather us like send you our comments after the meeting? Do you want us to like edit it by committee?
Well,
Which isn't so fun.
There's
so
no,
many edits are there going to be.
I don't think, I just didn't wanna, I
I
just
mean,
wanna
if
make
you wanna
sure.
move this along, then we need to talk about it and move it along.
Okay.
If you're gonna provide comments, we have holidays, and so things will sit until January.
Okay.
So I think if the idea is to get it out, then we should, I can't send it upstairs until this committee makes their comments.
Right. Okay.
So, and
Can I
that will
see
take
that?
time as well,
That
so.
in there,
Yeah.
thanks.
My preference would be if we can talk about it tonight and
Okay.
get that hashed out, that'd be great, and if
Yeah.
not, then,
I definitely think keeping lead testing in there is smart, because that was a big expense that we had when I did this program at Hilltown CDC.
but it was a big thing with the CPA, they talked a lot.
Lot about
Spent
lead
A lot of time talking about lead testing, a lot of time.
Nobody's worried about that.
So it sounds like my section, we want to be a little bit more specific about what we mean by regionally.
Yep.
And we want to add a little bit more specificity on the budget about the DPLs, but otherwise leave the other overhead.
Do you think consolidating some of that stuff at the bottom, I mean, do you really wanna know specifically advertising, consultants, equipment, like, can you lump it together as admin/overhead details as it says in here? Or do you want it really spelled out? What's the point of that?
I mean, I just know that when I pay bills for subcontractors at work and they send me an invoice, like, I want it to match what the budget said, so that I can go back and be like, oh, okay, you actually can pay rent out of this budget, cause we already approved the budget. And when they're all mushed together, sometimes you're like, what is this for? It's $6,000. So I feel like whatever's the easiest and simplest way for the city to have to pay the bill at the end seems like.
Well, the other benefit here too is also in the headers, it's showing the matching funds. So, you know, we show advertising, maybe the advertising cost is $1,000 and 500 is coming from East Hampton Savings Bank and the other 500 is coming from CPA. I mean, I think in that, by line iteming it out, then
Yeah.
at least you can see where the matches are coming from and what the matches are being used for. Cause the match money might have very specific things that can and cannot be used for.
Right,
So-
right.
So that, you know, maybe that's one benefit of having it, but I think, I agree, I feel like it's too much, like, I feel like it's too much in the weeds to some extent. And maybe some of these things can get combined, like, maybe we leave the advertising, cause that seems kind of important. I mean, I don't care about equipment and
Postage.
unless they're doing mailings, you know, I don't know.
You could put postage and printing
Postage,
together.
supplies, and materials can all go together in one place, I would think. I mean, are we paying for them to train their staff? That seems odd.
But that could be a matching fund.
Yeah, that could be their in-kind contribution. Good point.
Consultants, professional services.
I mean, are they realistically gonna be having any?
I would say no.
Just take it out?
I would take it out. Especially if they have to be in compliance with the Massachusetts procurement rules, because I feel like that would just scare them. They'd be like, forget it, I'm not doing that.
I mean, I'm thinking whoever's gonna respond to this can do most of the stuff in-house, and there's no reason for them to be hiring outside professional staff for it.
Right.
Do you have the budget, bless you, the budget from when Valley came with this proposal?
Yes. Well, I don't have it with me, but.
But would it
yes, they
help to
provided
like,
it.
put those side by side and, or is that what basically that is?
What they gave me
Yeah.
is what you're.
This is-
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, it's mostly there, right? Just a few.
Alright, so what if I take this? What if I basically take this little budget here
Mm-hmm.
and redo this a little bit? And kind of get this to sort of match this a little bit, but maybe have still some of these overhead details, like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a subset
Yeah.
of that header kind of thing?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Alright, I'll do that. Redo budget.
For the sake of the minutes, do I just put Jessica's gonna redo the budget?
Yes.
And I do think it's good to include on the, right, on the, selection criteria, the years of experience in their financial.
I got it.
Yeah, I saw your notes. I think that's it though.
Board members exam. Agency audit.
Does our request to the CPA go with this so they can see it?
No.
Okay.
You wanna give them some information, but you don't wanna give them all the information. You don't want them to just basically take it and then just
Right.
resubmit that.
Can they ask
So-
you those questions though?
What kind of questions?
I don't know about what it was that was asked for.
Ask for
By,
SCP.
yeah.
So in the RFP, you don't include the total budget amount?
It is at the top,
It is,
75,000.
oh, okay, sorry.
Come on, Kathy.
With their most recent agency audit, do we also want, them to add an explanation if there were any findings?
We could follow up, I'm sure of the thousands of responses we're going to get, you know, from when we make our selection, we're gonna probably wanna interview whoever we have as a selection anyway. So I think if there's stuff like that, we ask them during the interview process.
But usually the auditor gives a letter with the audit that says that anyway, and that's the easiest piece to read.
Yeah,
Much easier to read than their audit.
yeah.
Well, that's what I was just thinking,
Yeah.
Nick.
Yeah, so the cover page
In the audit.
is
sheet
often in there.
Says that.
Right, at the beginning.
Do we wanna add a part about like process, like, you know, we will interview
Yeah,
the
that's a great
candidates,
idea.
or like,
Let me run it by Melissa and see what she's thinking of.
cause we have to
Right.
present, I can't remember, do we, once we've selected a person, they have to be approved by CPA again, or we?
No,
No, we're done,
we're good.
we don't have to get approval by anybody
No.
else, alright.
Well, I think the mayor, obviously, he's the one who will need to sign the contract with them,
Okay,
so.
alright. So maybe we don't need to add anything.
Well, like a section 7 that just says process.
There may be technical stuff that I'm missing anyway,
Mhm.
so I'm sure there is.
Good start.
But, okay.
And when do we aim to release it?
I'd like to release it in January, at the latest. So if I can make these changes tomorrow, I'm not sure if I'll have time before the holiday, but, how about Thursday? Nothing right between cooking.
Pies,
Everybody.
lots of pies.
No, I'm cooking dinner. Um,
One original and 7 written copies.
I did 7 because I was trying to count the number of
No,
people.
no,
on
why,
it.
why is the word written in there?
What?
One original, and shouldn't it just say in 7 copies? Why does it say 7 written copies?
Where is that?
They have to
Section
write it out
2.
then.
Well, because to
Proposal.
make them understand that they can't email it in.
Hard copies.
Hard copy.
One original and 7 copies of the proposal must be submitted on paper. Says
Doesn't matter.
paper copy,
Whatever.
anyway.
I don't care.
I just thought they have to handwrite them, or
No.
they? Sorry.
We don't have to have an information session or anything.
Again, these are questions I want to run by the procurement
Okay.
officer, see what we really need to do.
Cause we did have an information session
Mm-hmm.
when we did the East Street one.
Yeah.
But that was a little, I mean, it's a little
It's
bit
a little
different.
bit different, 'cause
Yeah.
it's more of a development project.
Yeah.
And honestly, who's gonna come to this? I mean, we can certainly have one, and I'll do what I need to do in terms of the questions and, you know, anybody get asked for questions, put on a list, and anytime there's any questions, all those get put together in an addendum, and the addendum will go out to anybody who requests it, so there's a whole process that we can do if we need to.
Okay. All right.
Okay?
All right. Thank you for doing all this work. Anyone else have anything else on the RFP?
I was reading it closely again, I didn't get to do that earlier.
I mean, if there's other tweaks and grammar stuff, shoot me an email.
I was looking back at my notes from last meeting about how we were gonna go to the CPA committee, and then CPA city council meeting in November and do a public speak about our affordable housing presentation.
That's funny.
Which obviously we didn't do. So, I emailed Kathy, I haven't heard back from her. If you look at it again on that VMO
Vimeo
page,
thing.
it's got like some new fancy like bullet points during when Jessica's talking. And then this whole part that they like play this like jazz music, which I thought was kind of funny. But it looks good. So basically, I mean, she had asked me for the exact minute to insert the slides, but she must have been tired of waiting for me. So then she took the slide bullets and put them in while you're talking. So it looks kind of nice, actually. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's done. I mean, I still would like to talk to her about sound bites and editing it, you know, making some little smaller pieces that we could use other places. So it's not on the East Hampton media page, it's on that VMO page.
Mhm.
So, I can't exactly remember what I said in my email, but I was basically like, looks good, I think we're done, like,
Let's wrap it up.
let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
So, once I hear back from her about wrapping it up, then I think, we can do the things that we talked about, like putting it on Facebook and, you know, asking, Pat Bruff to put it on the East Hampton Good News page and putting it on the East Planning page and, you know, going to the city council for public speak and letting people know.
It should be the first thing that happens before it goes anywhere else.
So the first thing we do is go to city council. So when are they meeting in December?
What is it?
Is it the first and third?
Wednesdays. I don't know if it's, a goofy month because of the holiday.
Cause it'd be like the 7th and the 21st.
It'd be the 7th and the 21st.
To play the whole thing?
No, to tell them that we did it and it's available. We'll make it,
Stay and watch this.
make it available on the planning page or something so that we can tell them where to find it, or that they
You can
can.
put it on, we'll put it on the housing partnership
Oh, yeah,
website.
that's right.
Put it right there.
So, assuming that I hear back from Kathy before the 7th, and they're meeting on the 7th, I'm happy to go on the 7th.
I cannot because I have this other commitment, executive committee meeting for some other crazy organization.
I don't
How
know.
it works.
I don't know if they'll meet on the 21st, but if they,
I'm trying
Yeah,
not
it's
to be on this
online, right?
website, city meeting calendar. Here we go. December 7.
What time is that?
City council, yep, they're on the 7th at 6.
and they meet upstairs, right?
And what would you, I mean.
At Public Speak.
Yeah, so just in the
about-
beginning,
Just to tell them that
Yeah.
this exists?
yes, that we
So you
did
don't
it.
really need a bunch of us there.
No,
If you want me there, I'll go.
anyone would like to come with me, that's fine, but yeah, I think it's just to say, we, you know,
So I'll make a note to, we can copy that Vimo link and get it on the housing website. Do you want me to do that sooner rather than later? It should be there, it should physically be there on the website before you
Before-
announce it.
right, so that they
And
can
then
go
you
watch
announce
it
it,
later.
and then we can do those social media blasts
Is it the
afterwards.
old link? I'm looking for it, I can't find it. It's not on East Hampton.
It's not on the
Media?
east, it's on the, no, it is on this page, you have to keep, go to the bottom.
It's probably.
It's like on
organized by
page-
date.
oh.
That's old, I mean, that's like last month.
So last month.
It was old.
Oh, there it is this it?
That's it,
And it's been, but she edited it in here?
a month ago. So
Oh,
we
okay.
taped it in June, and they edited it a month ago to
Oh,
add
okay.
the fancy jazz music.
I'm pretty fired up about that.
It's cute. Well, and then I felt the need to watch the whole 39 minutes again to see if they added jazz music anywhere else, which they did not. So I was,
So it's only at the beginning?
it's only during Jessica's presentation.
Oh.
Like
Jazzy Jessica.
it's like a thing about affordable housing. It's cute. So in a perfect world, it would have happened multiple times, like in the other parts of the
Sure, sure, sure.
presentations. But I didn't have we don't have PowerPoint slides for the other parts of
No,
the
we
presentation. And at this point, I feel like it would just be
Not yet.
nice to be done
Yeah, yeah.
and say it's done and move on, rather than like tweaking these silly little things. So well, I was just trying to see what I emailed her. It was kind of crazy.
It's really not good on the phone.
You may have sent me the link.
Yes, that would be a fantastic.
Yeah, it's hard to, it's
That'd be
not easy to
fantastic.
find. So I will, plan to check in with Kathy again on Monday, and then
I've never heard of it before, it's so weird.
Yeah.
I'll let you know
before either.
before the 7th.
Yeah, yeah, just shoot, I mean, it takes 2 seconds to put it up.
Okay.
But I think it needs to be there before,
Yeah, so that they can go home that night after the
That's
city
right.
council meeting and watch
because
it.
they'll be so fired up about it.
Right.
It's gonna be amazing.
Did you
Be sure
want,
to point out the jazz music.
I'm gonna be like, and there's jazz music?
do you wanna bring something, like on your phone or whatever, to play jazz music?
While I'm talking, yes.
to them?
Yes, to get them in the mood, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so that's what we will do, and then we can move forward with our other plan of like the Facebook pages, and then, see what happens when people watch it and comment on the Facebook pages, and then kind of see what else we want to do in 2017.
Sounds fantastic.
I would like to still, talk to her about having some little snippets of things where people are saying, where Jessica talks about the difference between housing that is affordable and affordable housing. Like just things that we could use in other
Mhm.
venues and
Mhm.
stuff, which I think would be helpful.
Sounds good.
So, okay. All right, number 3 has to do with the East Hampton Overflow homeless shelter, which we started talking about over email, and Jessica reminded us to stop talking about it over
I
email.
apologize, that was good, thank you for keeping us legal.
So about, I don't know, a month ago? I don't remember when, sometime, a few weeks ago. I was at a meeting and I ran into Peg Keller, who's the housing person who works at the city of Northampton. And she was like, do you know anyone who's on the housing partnership in East Hampton? And I was like, yeah, I do. And so she was, and I truthfully did not really understand how the overflow shelter worked. I should have printed off my email where I explained it to you, because now I don't remember.
I got it.
But so,
We got Fran on our computer.
Thank
Awesome.
God.
Yeah. Is she officially our secretary or?
yes.
No, actually Kathy is.
Who's the
Oh.
church? Okay, so is it the Grove, it's the Grove Street Inn. So there, I think we were all sort of aware of this. That Our Lady of the Valley has had this 6-bed seasonal shelter that's been going on for a while. What I didn't realize is sort of how it all was connected to the other shelters. So it's an overflow from the Grove Street Inn in Northampton. And somehow Soldier On, which is the veterans provider, has been providing transportation for, I don't even think it's just the people that are at the shelter, it's like the volunteers or the staff who stay overnight at the shelter. And so apparently the church provides meals and volunteers who are there to kind of provide, you know, some services for the folks at the shelter, but they're not like the staff on hand who are there in case something happened, you know, overnight.
Stay overnight.
And so, apparently, you know, the seasonal shelters just opened a few weeks ago, and right before they were going to open, Soldier On was like, oh, and by the way, we're not gonna be doing that anymore. Because, you know, they weren't being paid enough, or they weren't being paid at all to transport. Sounded like the staff volunteers weren't getting paid, and they decided that they would really like to be paid, and therefore they're not gonna do it anymore. And so the city of Northampton, as part of their CDBG funds, does provide some support to the Grove Street Inn, which is how PEG's kind of connected to all of this. So the shelter didn't open on time, and she did not think that the shelter was gonna open at all, which was gonna leave a 6-bed shortage for the season in the area that, you know, could maybe be absorbed, like a couple beds by the Grove Street Inn, but they couldn't absorb all 6 beds, and, you know, she wasn't sure. So, you know, I basically said that we had not been really working on homeless issues, though we've talked about how we wish we were sort of more tapped into what was going on, because it's not a real present issue in East Hampton. It's not as obvious as it might be in some of our other
Because we don't have the
communities.
social services that a lot of folks need here in East Hampton.
So anyway, so then I emailed her last week just to say, you know, we were meeting, and did she have any update, and could she remind me exactly how it works, because I can't really remember. And lo and behold, Mike Beinger from the Social Justice Committee at Our Lady of the Valley is the one who we've met with before, is the person who's like the contact person for the overflow shelter. So I thought he was gonna be able to come tonight, but he can't come tonight. He's gonna come to our meeting in December to kind of give us more of an update of exactly what's going on. They did open late because they did get some money, so the here it is. Attorney General David Sullivan's office chipped in $1,000, and the Hampshire County Friends of the Homeless put some money in. And stipends, so they basically pay stipends to these soldier volunteers to come and go to the shelter. But PEG is trying to raise more money, and I was clear with her that I didn't think that we were in a position to give them any money. But I do think it's an issue that we should be aware of exactly how it works, and, you know, are there ways in the future that we could, you know, be of some use to them with regard to this? I don't know. So.
Just out of curiosity, how much does that pay for the cost for the season?
Well, it sounds like it before it was free.
Right.
And so.
More than that.
More than that.
I mean, she's trying to raise $5,000 for this season. I don't know how much the stipends are. I can ask her that.
She's trying to raise 5, you said?
Yes. And she didn't sound like the city of Northampton was gonna have any extra from their CDBG. And what did Mike say? So what Mike said is, you know, he would love to meet with us anyway to talk about ways to have a more stable and permanent working relationship with, you know, all of the groups involved. And they still have a pastor committed to housing the guests, and about 80 to 100 parish volunteers who are willing to cook and like do all that stuff. But it sounds like it's really like the staffing component. And it may also be this whole transportation issue between Northampton and getting folks here every day. Which sounds like, because he mentioned,
And
you know,
back.
yeah, working arrangement, other ways to get our guests over to the annex. So it sounds like it's 2 issues. It's the stipend to the volunteers, and it's just transportation in general. And I don't know enough about it of how they were doing it before.
Is it the kind of thing where there's like one bus trip over here, or do they do a bunch of them as people straggle in, or? You
I-
know?
I would imagine, I mean, the way most seasonal shelters work is that you can come in at a certain time and
Yeah.
there's a line and, you know, when the last person comes in this case, if there's 6 people left over, they go to East Hampton. But I don't know, right, do they do it at 6 and then they do it again at 10?
I'd also be curious to know, just from my own knowledge, like, how often is the overflow shelter used in the cold winter months? Is it every night? Is it 2 nights? Is it 1 night a week? Is it once a month? Like, I don't have any sense of like,
I don't either.
how many people actually go in and out of that shelter
Yeah.
in any season.
Yeah. I don't either.
Because it's hard to justify, it's hard to go to the administration and ask for either money or a way to help with transportation if there's no sense of what the data is behind it and how many people it's serving and
Right.
what that is.
Okay.
Would it be easier for them to find someone else to accommodate the overflow that's closer, like in Northampton? So they didn't need a bus?
I don't know how long this has been going on or what the relationship is, so I think that's why it's great that Mike's gonna come next
Yeah.
meeting, cause I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
why it's happening here and it isn't happening in Northampton. I don't know. So, these are all good questions, and I can email him and say, here's the kinds of things we wanna know when you come in December. So, I think it would be great to kind of have a better understanding. Yeah, I have no idea, is it open every night? I don't know.
I have no idea. Is it just a weekend thing? I mean, like, I have
Well,
no.
Grove Street's open every night, Grove
Right.
Street Shelter, and I'm trying to go back in my brain and see, I mean, my.
When I read about it on the internet, doing that list that we're concocting, it said that when Grove Street is full, they then overflow to the basement of an office building somewhere there in Northampton. I don't recall how many people they can put up in that space. And then, once that is filled up, then they come out to Our Lady of the Valley.
Do you think that Peg would be willing to come to a meeting too with Mike at the same time? And then that way, it's like, then we seem to have all the pieces of the
information.
puzzle, you know,
Mhm.
together in the same room, and we can figure out how the flow works, like where do they?
Yeah, sure.
That's
We'll
on
figure
the-
out what
that's
their
the
needs
13th?
are
Yeah.
before we can really do anything.
Or we can have Peggy on speakerphone, because I think she lives far away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can ask her, yeah. It sounds like she would like to have more of a connection with us anyway, just in general, so, but yeah, I can ask her, or, you know, give me some more information about it, cause I was really, I felt so like out of the loop, cause I was like, what? Soldier On does what? So, I mean, it's good for us to know this information.
Just on a side note, I saw this online today. Nationwide homelessness plunged under Obama. So I just made copies in case anybody was interested.
Less homelessness?
I
Thanks,
got,
Obama.
By about 31%, the
Wow.
homelessness numbers have dropped under administration. Wait, that's my highlighted version. Put my initials in.
I got a similar
But-
email from HUD.
But I do wanna read this one thing. So,
Kitchen on Thanksgiving.
so, a lot of what they talk about in here in terms of federal policies, these ideas were started at the city level and the local level. And this one sentence I'm just going to read, if the GOP-controlled Congress decides to dock non-defense discretionary spending to pay for Trump's promised increases for defense spending, housing aid could be cut as a result. So, you know, it's just another thing, I think, for us to keep an eye on locally, and how do we locally deal with this, knowing that at a federal level and those dollars coming down are likely gonna be cut and slashed. And so I think it's important for us, if we're having this conversation, to think about what are we gonna do at a local level to make sure that these things don't get left behind, and people don't get left behind. So, anyway, I thought it was an interesting and timely article. So there you go.
I am, Berkshire, Franklin, and Hampshire County have what's called the 3-county continuum of care. And I'm on the board.
So Jim's on the continuum of care for.
I was. I got sick a couple years ago and just sort of like wasn't able to
Okay.
get to anything up there.
Okay.
So,
And so I'm new to the board. Community Action is a homeless prevention provider, and so we have to have a seat on the board. But so I will maybe have more
That's great.
knowledge of this, cause the COC gets money from HUD, but they then give out to homeless shelters and other providers who serve people who are homeless. So, yeah, I will hopefully be more informed going forward. But I think in East Hampton, it's not really a visible issue for us, and so I think that's why it's
Well,
not really.
it's not, because during the summer, they stay out by the creeks and by the bike trail and all of that, so we don't really know much about it until the weather gets cold and it's time to
I
open.
have
Which is
stumbled,
when HUD makes you count, so.
right.
Right,
How many do you think we have?
I've stumbled across folks in some of our protected open spaces, people who are camping out there essentially, and I know that I think there's been some occasions in Montauk Park as well, people camping out there.
Hmm.
So,
mostly in the warmer months,
Mhm.
yeah.
but I've been on trails by myself and have stumbled across tents and makeshift living spaces, so.
All right, well, so Mike's gonna come next month, and I'll see if Peg can come or give us more information if she can't come, and then I think it'll be
Yep.
a helpful.
What was Mike's last name?
It's Biegner. B. B.
Bigly?
B. Yeah, I don't know. I can't pronounce it very well.
Braggadocious.
And I will ask him these questions so that he's prepared.
By Peggy, you talking about Peggy Connor?
No.
Peg Keller.
Peg Keller.
Who's the
She's in the planning department in Northampton, and she does housing stuff.
she's the housing planner, maybe? Can't
Maybe.
remember what her title was. Okay, great. I put December meeting on here just because we usually have like a holiday thing as part of our meeting.
No Betty, no shrimp.
Shoot.
Oh,
Maybe we can invite her just so she can bring shrimp. Betty, are you listening?
So when is that going to be?
When do we meet? The second Tuesday?
So 13th.
Yes, December 13th. So we usually have like a meeting and then we adjourn and then we eat.
Shrimp,
Well,
apparently.
we usually eat shrimp, but I don't know. And
Hmm.
no
Is
Betty.
there no shrimp? There's no Betty.
No.
There's no other.
Unless
shrimp.
it's-
Everybody bring something?
Yes,
Or
we all just
shrimp?
like bring, we all bring shrimp.
But you should bring the shrimp. I think that's it.
Except Betty doesn't even like shrimp. That was always
Oh,
the
yeah,
end.
that was
Yeah,
a
that's the
joke.
funny part.
So do people still wanna do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Is it a meal or just a nibbly?
It's like
I bring a
cookie
tray of
sheets.
sandwiches.
I was gonna say Jim usually brings sandwiches,
Cheese and crackers.
cookies.
Cookies.
And shrimp.
Some-
Shrimp.
Yeah,
Guess we better have shrimp.
I'll bring sandwiches.
it's a random assortment of food. Drinks,
Drinks.
non-alcoholic drinks.
Damn.
All right. And then, for 2017, do we wanna keep the same schedule, the second Tuesday at 6:45? Does that work for everybody for the most part?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then my last thing, is other items. So Kathy, do you wanna talk about or Jessica, the condo first?
Let's see,
Is that the Mountain View condo?
yes.
I've been offered that twice.
Might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, I was wondering, since I'm already on affordable housing plan and everything else with my home, can I get another one? You can give this one back?
It's a 2-bedroom condo. It's, 2 floors, and, I'm not sure whether the basement is completely done over, but there's the capacity to do it if it isn't. It's in the condo association, some people have a third means of egress through the basement, and some people don't. So the ones that have egress usually do it.
What's an egress?
Door.
Exit.
Oh, okay.
there's a garage that's connected to the condo. Just trying to think, I can't find the email. It's $143 something is the purchase price. If you're interested, you call Donna Cabana at Valley CDC. And she can send you an email or tell you over the phone what the income limits are. That's what I can't find. Trying to think what else.
I read it, I thought that the minimum income on it was like 52,000.
Yeah,
Well,
that's something for
It
two
goes by how many's in the
people, right?
family, I think.
Pardon?
Didn't it go by how many's in the family?
Yes.
As I looked at it, and for a family of two, it was 24,000 to 52 per year, something like that. So I have a friend that is sort of half thinking about this. There's a beautiful view of the mountain there.
Yes.
They're nice little places from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's got central air, has heat.
That's important these
Yeah.
days.
No solar panels, huh?
Dishwasher, I think you have to bring your own washer and dryer, unless they leave it there, the folks that are living there.
And there's condo fees, right, there?
Condo fees are $110 a month.
Right, and so Valley CDC is doing it.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
The only other thing I had on my list was to ask Jessica about CDBG applications for next, are you guys applying, the city?
This upcoming round,
Yeah.
we're not eligible to.
You have to wait, or?
Because we were funded under the last round, where the rule was that for the level that we applied for, we can only apply every 2 years.
Okay.
So we're not applying for this round. We'll see what happens with the CDBG program over the next year.
Right.
But we are planning for 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
I have one other.
Yeah.
I know when, Lita, when you came last time, you were coming to get more information about,
Mhm.
the partnership and your interest, and I, just for the sake of the minutes, I didn't know where you were at with that, should I put anything
Am I
in the
still
minutes or not?
interested?
Well,
Yes, I am actually. I am. And we were talking about membership too, and I did contact that contractor person I know, and she really doesn't have the availability to partake. She would have been great too.
Thanks for asking.
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll keep beating the bushes.
I reached out to someone too with 2 questions. One, it's an attorney who I thought would be good.
Mm.
And so she answered my legal question, but seemed to miss the question about joining the house. I'll follow up. Yeah,
First
she
thing.
didn't read that one in the same email.
All right, does anyone have anything else? All right. You can adjourn.
Do I need approval by anybody? to-
Yep.
Yes, you gotta go through the mayor.
Right, the mayor?
It's on the website.
Like you did for the disability.
Yeah.
I'll download the application.
Okay.